retreat that typically it's a silent. There's the silence there. And the silence meaning the external silence, in order to allow us to hear the internal noise that's there inside. And the internal noise is actually the material then that we should be talking about with God. Last night we had a little Mary's night at Port Kembla, and I was talking to a gentleman after the time we prayed evening prayer together, had exposition of the Blessed Sacrament, and then about 15 minutes of silence. And then we said the prayer of Our Lady, had a hymn or two, and then finished with the prayers for benediction, and then concluded. And I said to him, how did you feel about the silent? Was it too long, too short, just right? He says, for me it was a bit too long. I said, really? Okay. And offer any reason why? He says, after a few minutes, all these thoughts about what's going on in my life comes in and then starts to distract me, and I'm trying to focus on Mary and on Jesus, and I said, actually, those distractions are what you should be talking to Mary and Jesus about, you know? But anyway, so that's the idea of the silent retreat, that we remove artificial distractions, and whatever comes up from within, unless it's what we're going to have for morning tea or what's coming for lunch, something trivial, then those things are things that we should pray about. Say, Lord, right now, this is what's filling my mind. And sometimes what's filling our minds might be vindictive thoughts about someone who has hurt us. Okay, I need to pray because the process of forgiveness isn't yet complete within me. Okay? So, singing and music, again, has always been part of the Church's liturgy. And not only it was part of the Jewish worship, but very much part of the Church's liturgy, and the praying with the Psalms, which is an overflow in the liturgy of the hours, known as the praying of the Psalms. But the liturgy of the hours is also really has been from probably about the 2nd century onwards. There is the idea of praying the Psalms, and the Psalms, there are 150 of them, as you know. There's a great opportunity to find an expression in the Word of God for every sentiment of the human heart. So the joyful moments, the somber moments, when we feel flat, when we feel empty, when we feel depressed, when we feel angry, when we feel hurt and betrayed. All of these things, you will find an expression of them in the Psalms. A priest, I remember from our diocese many years ago, we were talking about the Psalms, and he said to me, Mark, guess which ones are my favorite Psalms? I said, what? He says, the angry ones. Why? Because he found through the Psalms, through the angry Psalms, he was able to express his own anger to God and sanctify it. God made us the type of people who can be angry. And not all anger is rough anger, right? You know, sometimes it's righteous anger. But when we have the bad anger, the unrighteous anger, what are we supposed to do with that? Well, I think praying through it is the best thing that we can do, because it helps us to see other meaning within it, and to realize that sacred writers who've gone before us in time and in following God and following Christ, they've gone through these things as well and are able to sanctify them, basically. So, excuse me, so in the silence, singing and music, in the use of sacred images, in the Second Council of Nicaea, 787 AD, they ruled against the iconoclasts, who did not want to have any images or graven images of Christ, pictures of Christ, pictures of Our Lady. And the council ruled against them, saying, you know what, the second person of the Trinity has become man, and therefore he's taken on a human form, and therefore we can represent him in art. And I thank God for the Church in making that ruling, because we have all this great tradition of sacred art. Can you imagine if the Church ruled against this? We would have no Sistine Chapel. We would have no beautiful Stations of the Cross. Granted that not every parish is blessed to have a tremendous, artistically rich Stations of the Cross, but we just wouldn't have all these things that lift our souls to the eternal. But the iconoclasts were referring back to the Old Testament, where God is invisible, and one of the commandments, not the actual commandment, the 10 Commandments, but one of the other 613, thou shalt not have any graven images. The idea of the graven images, though, was not a representation of the true God, who was invisible and couldn't be put in a physical form, but because of the danger that those people fall into the worship of false gods. When they would have, how many of you have seen the film The Gladiator? The Gladiator, okay, some half of you. So, The Gladiator was filmed, but it's a great film actually, and a very good, noble story, but filmed very much in the sort of pre-Christian times. Well, you see him praying there with his 2 little gods, and there were symbols, I think, of his daughter and son, but people would have those little mannequins, and we find Laban, the uncle of Jacob, had his gods as well. And so the idea, if I've got my God in a statue, then when I don't like my God, what do I do with him? Bring him out of my pocket when I want to talk to him. It means he's not really a God at all, because he is not in control of my life. I'm in control of him. That means there's no God really at all. Okay, we're being hinted that we've got a break time, so let me just round out these points, and then we will, you know what, let's have a break now. It'll take me probably 10 minutes or so in the next talk, and then we will wrap that up, and then we'll go into the actual liturgy step by step. So any quick questions on anything I've said so far? Great, let's have a break now, and we'll go afterwards.